I'll tell you, I think, first of all, organizations to have a very strong belief that take jobs to where the talent is rather than the other way around, right? I think historically, any of the level organization, MNCs would set up their shops into tier one cities, knowing, of course, the cities have the entire ecosystem and attracting talent from there, without realizing more than 50% of the population who works in tier one cities doesn't belong to those cities. At some point in time in their career, they decided that if I have to grow, I have to move to this city, and that became part of the way of their life, right? I think it requires a very deeper thought that the real corporate social responsibility is to create jobs into the markets where there are not enough opportunities. And I think that's how we started. When TaskUs started in India 6 years back, 2019 is we started, and the organization was very clear. If frontline first is one of our core values, let's look at where does frontline means the talent should come from. Historically, the organization always believed in going to markets where enough opportunities have not been created while the talent is really good. And that's how TaskUs started. It was very unconventional to start your entry into a country from a tier 2 city. Indore is the city that we identified and we set up our first office. While it was difficult for our clients, for our leadership to take an extra flight to get to a tier 2 city, right? It's a little painful for them. But we are like, they can take this one-time pain rather than the front line who has to leave their hometown and move to a different city. And that eventually, in just 2 years, that site grew to about 4,500 people. And that was just the COVID phase that we were seeing. I think what surprised us the most is the value. People really value jobs into those markets. They would not hop onto different opportunities for some short-term benefits. And I think that encouraged us to get further into, while we have now presence in Navi Mumbai, but we were like, no, tier 2 is something which our clients also appreciate a lot. And we set up something in Mohali. What surprised us going into Punjab, setting up in Mohali? The talent pool there was not from really Chandigarh or the in and around area. 60% of the talent pool that came to work in Mohali was from mountains. Because that's such the talent is just amazing. Usually they would go to hotels, they would go to, their first touch point would be Delhi. And they realize that something, if they are getting in Chandigarh and Mohali, that's like a midpoint, being closer to the family. I would say a big challenge, right? Just setting up only frontline is not important. You need the managers, you need the leadership also. It's not, while the frontline talent would be easily available, how do you focus on not only for the job or the skill that the people are ready for, but also for the growth to take the next levels? TaskUs Academy is something that we created because you need huge investment into their training and development. Not only from a skill standpoint, the first year is only going to be the skill-based trainings which are required to perform a job. But the second year of their tenure is where you start building training modules on situation handling, how to manage people. What are those skills which only comes with an ecosystem which they are deprived of? Right. TaskUs Academy is something that we introduced that it has about 8 different training modules. You clear this entire milestone so that you can apply for the internal job post. We have reached a stage, 80% of our second level jobs, which is a team leader's position, gets filled internally. I think it requires, as I said, a different mindset altogether, right? A mindset and very strong belief of, before even you go and convince your clients, it has to be your own belief that this is possible. Then only you take steps into the right direction, right? And it doesn't happen just by itself, that you just go set up a shop and start hiring people and then, no, it doesn't work like that because there are risks associated with it, right? Unconventional hiring into unconventional markets Let's also understand we will deal with some conservative mindsets of the community that we'll have to deal with. What are those risks we should really know, and what are those risk mitigation factors that the other companies have adapted? Really important to learn from them. There are companies which are successful on those markets, probably at a smaller scale right now. But I think apart from the mindset, the government policies play a very important role. In last 1 decade, I'm seeing there is a huge change in the way the government is pretty flexible in terms of changing their policies. And the third is, I think, the investments. You have to make investments. It has to be a long-term vision. It cannot be a short-term. It takes, in my experience, takes at least 10 years for a tier 2 city to develop that ecosystem and come up to a certain level.
So what the fruit that we see now is the effort that we put a decade back.
From my perspective, since you said it has to be bulleted, so very brief answer, right? Focus on diverse workforce. Example, women who would want to return to their career, where tier 1 cities offer you a very strong ecosystem to, like the in-house daycares, etc. Outside in the market, you would find it. In tier 2 cities, the market is still, women are still deprived of these opportunities. I think if companies can really focus, like I'll talk about ourselves, all our offices, tier 1 or tier 2, would have to have a mandatory daycare, not only into the India time zones, even into a US or a UK time zone. Because if you are to support different regions, you are a global organization, you've got to think through what would support them to really come out of and help them, fight their challenges.